Hi, this is Russell York, and I just wanted to set the record straight on a couple of things. One, I wanted to set the record straight on what a lot of people like myself, I believe, feel in this country in regards to what happened in Orlando last night and has been happening around the world and in this country in the last couple of years. And in fact, in the last decade, going all the way back 15 years to 9/11. I hate killing. My value on human life far exceeds my value in anything else on this planet. Every living being on this planet has a right to exist and live. But it's unfortunate that in the world that we live in, there are people that don't agree with that. And in fact, there are people that believe that certain religions, certain belief systems should not only be condemned, but should be eradicated. And when I say eradicated, I mean killed off, violently killed off, which is what we saw in Orlando last night. And that involved a terror organization that's been confirmed, and it also involved an LGBT nightclub. So clearly it accentuates the radical Muslims' hate for gay and lesbians who have just as much of a right to live in this country and in this world as anyone else. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to set the record straight. I hate war. I hate killing. I hate violence. I hate fist fighting. I hate everything that's involved with that. And that goes back a long way in my history. But in my adult life and in my late teen years, I had to accept that at certain periods of time, that's what was necessary. And if it was going to be necessary, that it had to be done right. That you can't play around with it. That you can't sugarcoat it. When you decide to mano a mano up against an individual, a culture, a country, a religion, a belief system, then you can't do that half-heartedly. You have to bring all your might to bear, and it has to be hard, to the core, decisive. And so here's what we have here. The radical Muslim, preys on the ignorance of the people in the United States and the country as a whole. And that doesn't mean that we're stupid people, because clearly we are some of the smartest people on the planet. Look at what we've created in this country in less than 300 years. So the technology that's available to us, the military might that's available to us is second to none anywhere in the world. What we do have a problem with is agreeing with one another. And that has become ISIS and radical Islam's number one weapon. And that is to conquer and divide using the traditional political correctness and doctrines that this country has developed. And that is that we want it all, and we want the cake and the cherry and the whipped cream to go with it. And we haven't figured out that sometimes you might just get the cake, or you might just get the whipped cream, or you might only get the cherry. But to get the job done right, oftentimes you're not going to get everything that you want. And so what that means is that we don't have time to fight over gun laws. We don't have time to fight over some of the petty things that we fight over. We don't have time to fight over black lives. We don't have time to fight over blue lives. All lives matter. We don't have time to fight over abortion. That doesn't mean that those things don't need to be discussed and that they're not important, because they are important. But they're not nearly as important right now as what's going on in the world and what happened in Orlando last night. And by the way, will happen again if we don't do something about it. The man that committed those atrocities bought his guns legally. He was a born in the United States citizen of the U.S. who developed ties to radical Islam, and indeed it has been purported and proven that he actually met with a suicide bomber that has carried out radical Islam attacks in years prior, going to 2013, 2014. He was investigated twice by the FBI. Our current laws would not allow the FBI to act on that because, according to law, he had committed no crime. He was exercising his First Amendment rights of free speech. So you can see where the political correctness quandary comes into play here. He has a right to his opinion. He has a right to hate me and you, but he doesn't have a right to walk into a nightclub and start killing people. He was investigated for making what his coworkers felt were terroristic type threats. And that's what brought the FBI in. And it turned out there wasn't enough evidence to hold him or do anything under the law about it. Well, that's a problem. That's a real problem. The problem is that absolutely First Amendment rights are important, but so are terroristic threats. And there are actually laws on the books that govern that. So I just want to set the record straight in that something should have and could have been done about this, and I believe it goes all the way up to the top of our government and all the way to the President of the United States and how we as a country are going to choose to view this. Last but not least, I want to remind people of something. I posted something on Facebook earlier today. I don't think anybody read it. I don't blame them. It was a long article. I read a lot and study a lot about the Middle East and radical Islam, and not everybody has the stomach for it. It's really boring at times, even to me. So it's not that I don't understand that. But there's a need to take an interest in that stuff, because how can you fight an enemy that you don't understand? If all you know about it is that there's radical Muslims and there's peaceful Muslims, and how do you tell the difference, and what do they want? What is their ultimate goal? How are they going about it? Oh, okay, they're shooting nightclubs up and they're blowing bombs up in Paris and such. If that's all you know about it, then you really don't understand your enemy. You don't understand the fundamental logic that goes behind and the ideology that goes behind why they're doing what they're doing, and most importantly, how they're doing it. And that goes back to preying on the natural weakness of the United States. People against people, debate, political correctness, rights and wrongs. Those kinds of things at a certain point have to be considered and yet to a certain degree cast aside, because we are in a war. 50 people died in war last night, and 53 more were injured. We need to take the fight back to the terrorists, and we need to take it to them hard. And we don't have time to go in with a couple of 100,000 troops and set up some bases and cause our soldiers to have the kind of fights that they had in Fallujah and other places in Iraq and Afghanistan. We need to send them over there with the force and the weapons necessary to dominate. And I mean dominate all the way, from one side of the Middle East to the other. And of course we want to take into consideration all the rights and the fact that we love all peoples of the world. But what has to be done has to be done. And I want to say something about gun control. And I said this in a post on Facebook just a little while ago on Facebook. If I wanted to get rid of your guns, which I would if I was radical Islam, and I wanted to make sure that the United States was as vulnerable as it possibly could be, then the way I would personally go about it is prey on the debate that's already occurring and has been occurring in this country for many years regarding the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Okay? And I would do that by using those very weapons in all of my atrocities and create as much debate and as much consternation and frustration revolving around gun control as I possibly could. And then I would sit back and I would hope that the United States would falter and make decisions that would leave themselves more vulnerable. That would be my plan. And I would also continue to prey on all the other debates that are happening in this country. Because let me tell you what, the difference between us and them is that they know exactly what their plan is. They all know exactly what their plan is. Radical Islam has a plan, and it's been in place for many, many, many years, going all the way back to the 1950s, and even farther back if you want to get super historic. But for sure, in its current state, Radical Islam and its plan to conquer and divide this world and eradicate Jews, homosexuals, Christians, Baptists, Catholics, and every other religion has been in place for a long, long time. Make no mistake about it. They know what they're fighting for. They're all on the same page. They know that we're fighting about guns. They know that we're fighting about all the other things that we're fighting about in this country. And let me tell you something. You see this shotgun right back here? That's a SWAT 12 gauge shotgun that's made for only one thing: killing people. It's not made for bird hunting. It's not made for target practice. It is quite simply made to shoot another human being in self-defense. Now, if you want to take those guns away from me, that's all well and good. But let me point out something to you. On this street, the street I'm living on right now as we currently speak in northern Kentucky, is a little bit safer because of that gun and a couple of others, by the way. Because if something happens down the road from my house at a nightclub, if something was to happen in my neighborhood that involved Radical Islam, they've got to go through my yard. And if they go through my yard, I'm prepared to fight. I'm prepared to go all the way. I'm prepared to take care of you and your children and me and my family and my children. I'm prepared to fight. I don't want to debate about how to handle Radical Islam anymore. We all need to get on the same page. Thanks for letting me share.